Trump obviously didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize today, one, because he's never solved a conflict in his life, and two, because the submission deadline for this year's nominees was January 31st of this year, only 11 days after he took office, and he definitely hadn't done anything up to that point. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why he's real mad at China about a decision that he doesn't understand. Some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths, and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. We'll stop there. Just a little background so you know how wrong he is on this already. There are 17 recognized rare earth minerals. China earlier this year put export restrictions on 7 of those, and then today they imposed an additional export restriction on 5 more of them. So that does equal up to 12 total. There are still 5 that they're not putting any export restrictions on. So when he says anything to do with rare earths, which again, he doesn't understand what that is at all, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We'll continue. No one has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would clog the markets and make life very difficult for every country in the world, especially for China. We'll stop again. If you don't know, rare earth minerals are used for a bunch of technologies, computer chips, semiconductors, but also used in weapons. So China putting export controls on this is just saying that they're going to restrict how much they send to a country based on that country's intended use of the rare earth mineral. So they are not going to be hurt by this at all. In fact, they're going to have more tight controls over their distribution of something that can be used to make weapons that can be used against them. So from a national defense perspective, this is actually very beneficial to China. We can continue. We have been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I have always felt that they've been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I have been proven right. I don't know what he's talking about when he says our relationship with China has been great over the past 6 months. In the past 6 months, we have had tariffs on China of 145%, and only through more negotiation have we got that down to 30%, which is still extremely high. And oh, by the way, that's still money you're paying. China doesn't pay that. That's money you pay to try and get less Chinese products shipped into the United States, which we're able to do so much because we're extremely wealthy, and it's beneficial to both countries for us to import from them because we don't have low-wage manufacturing jobs at the same level that China does. We tend to rely on services in this country for the mass amount of our GDP, which is still leading the world, which should show you that we should continue to focus on services and not go back to low-wage manufacturing. But again, he's just claiming that we've had this great relationship and this came out of nowhere, and he's proven himself right. But he's basing that on the fact that he's saying that they're now putting export restrictions on everything rare earth when they're only putting it on 12 of 17 rare earth minerals, and 7 of those they placed earlier this year. So this is not out of nowhere. This next section, you don't need to hear the whole thing. It's just a bunch of drivel, but he says China's holding the world captive and they're starting with magnets. I don't know what his obsession with magnets is. And then he says that they've amassed a monopoly position, but that the US has monopolies too, and that he just hasn't played that card yet because he didn't feel that he needed to yet until now. The next section, also, you don't need to hear the whole thing. I swear this thing is very long. He's saying that they sent a very detailed explanation of why it is, and he doesn't understand why President Xi is doing this, but that there's no longer a reason for him to speak with him, which does lead in the next section, which I will read. I was to meet with President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was the day that, after 3,000 years of bedlam and fighting, there was peace in the Middle East. I wonder if that timing was coincidental. So from articles that I've read, these export controls aren't going to take place until December 1st of this year, so there is still plenty of reason for him to go and meet with President Xi. But again, he's just trying to increase hostility between countries because that's all he knows how to do, because he thinks that gives him more power domestically for him to intimidate these foreign countries. So that is what he's doing. And then this whole thing about him ending 3,000 years of unrest in the Middle East, a situation that he clearly does not understand and also has ended nothing, is just a very weird, odd statement for him to make. The next section, he just says if China doesn't stop this, he's going to have to counter it financially, and then says for every element that they have been able to monopolize, we have 2. Again, he says that it's every rare earth mineral, which is 17 of them. So what are the 34 that we have? Because our biggest exports are airplane parts and petroleum and oil. So I'm not sure what he's talking about there. He then goes on to say, I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps as with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, though potentially painful, it will be a very good thing in the end for the USA. One of the policies that we are calculating at this moment is a massive increase of tariffs on Chinese products coming in the United States of America. So again, because China has decided to bolster their national security, he's going to tax you more. That's all he's saying here. I mean, really, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And him even saying the only thing that may be potentially true is that this is going to be painful. It's going to be harder for us to manufacture weapons, to manufacture electronics, things like that without these rare earth minerals. And if he continues to be hostile to the countries and does not form some sort of relationship with China, then they're going to exclude us from the people that they're willing to export to, which will make it cost even more for us to get our hands on these materials, especially considering that China digs up 60% of all rare earth minerals and then also processes 90% of all rare earth minerals in the entire world. So they do actually have a monopoly, and we have nothing to counter this. And finally, he says, there are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious consideration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So just to summarize that whole thing, he doesn't know anything about rare earth minerals. He doesn't know about restrictions that China previously put in place. He doesn't know about restrictions that they're putting in place now. He thinks it all has to do with magnets. He says that we also have monopolies over all of these things. In fact, we have monopolies at a 2-to-1 rate to China. If they don't back down, we're going to have to reconsider. And if they don't reconsider, then he's going to tax you more. That's my summary of all of that nonsense.